Hello. In this lecture, I'd like to give you an introduction to the Delft3D wave module, which includes the SWAN wave propagation model for wave generation, propagation, and transformation, coupled with Delft3D flow. I'll start with the general introduction, then describe the SWAN wave model, give an example of what a wave computation could look like, and explain how to set up a wave computation using the wave GUI and inspect the results using quick plot. Then we'll look at how the wave current interaction can be achieved using the coupling between Delft3D wave and Delft3D flow. And in the end, I'll introduce an example and exercise. So Delft3 wave is made to make wave predictions in coastal areas. There are different types of wave models, and Delft3D wave is using the spectral wave model SWAN, around which we've created a wrapper, a user interface, and an automated coupling between SWAN and Delft3D flow. Why should we want to do wave predictions in coastal areas? Well, for one thing, we may want to know what are the wave conditions near the shore, as you see here, for the design of these kind of structures, for instance, or your dune safety. To prevent damage to revetments, to look at the impact of extreme events, and a little bit more offshore, we're interested in the wave conditions for the design of these structures. So what kind of processes can play a role in the propagation and the transformation of waves? So in propagation, we are talking about shoaling, the steepening of waves because of the slowing down of the wave group velocity, the refraction, that is the turning of waves on the wave on the underlying bathymetry, reflections, that are waves hitting a wall and bouncing back, and diffraction is waves curling around a structure. So those are propagation aspects, and we also have more, as in SWAN speak, that is physics. It's wave growth by wind, nonlinear wave-wave interactions, and wave-bottom interactions. There's different types of wave models. You have the more detailed phase resolving models, which actually describe the propagation of each individual wave, therefore require a high resolution. They are very good in resolving diffraction and reflections, but it's more difficult to include the effect of wind growth and the wave breaking. Well, it's possible, but it's somewhat limited. Phase averaged, on the other hand, means that you do not describe the individual waves, but you describe how the amplitude of the waves, the wave height and the wave period, how that slowly changes over larger distances. In that case, it's very well possible to include the effect of wind growth. But diffraction, so the details of what happens, for instance, in a harbor and with waves curling around a structure, that is much more difficult to include in such models. So if we look at phase resolving models, then here, for instance, you see the typical diffraction pattern of waves going around a structure. And you also have strong reflections against walls, and that leads to nodes and antinodes, standing wave patterns in a basin that are not resolved in a spectral model. Wind effects, on the other hand, are included. Well, on a large harbor like this, there might be some wind effects, but typically at this scale, we do not really care about the little bit of extra generation of wind. We're mostly interested in how the waves propagate. So given the offshore wave conditions. So in such a model, you would use a phase resolving approach. Now, let's see. So let's focus on the spectral wave models that describe the generation of waves and propagation over larger distances, and then gradually the dissipation of the waves as they approach the shore. Here we see a typical wave field. You see it's not a single wave direction. It's a bit messy, and you can see it as composed of many waves that travel in different directions with different heights and periods. So basically, a superposition of a number of elementary waves. So this summation of all possible wave trains leads to a pattern like this. And that leads to random waves that are short crested. And if all these patterns are more or less in the same direction, then you get more long crested waves, but they will always be random because of the interference between the different wave components. So Delft3D Wave uses the phase averaged type, and it's used for coastal regions, surf zone region, nested. We can use nested grids, but the details of the wave propagation in a port like this would not be resolved. So let's talk more about the SWAN model. This was developed by the TU Delft with large support from the Office of Naval Research in the United States, and it's now widely used worldwide. I'll give a bit of introduction, physics, numerics, etc. So what is the physics behind SWAN? It's based on the action balance equation. The rate of change of action, wave action. This is the propagation of the wave action with the group velocity Cx and Cy. Those are the group velocities of the wave energy in both directions. This represents the propagation speed in the so-called theta space, so in the wave direction space, and it represents the refraction of waves. And on the right-hand side, we have the sources and sinks and the nonlinear terms. So the wave action is much like the wave energy, E, but it is the wave action is the energy divided by the frequency, and it has the interesting property that it is conserved also if you have an underlying current field. So if you